All right, so welcome into the live stream today. Of course, something big has happened within the crypto sphere, and that is involving payments and how this may be cracking into the retail sector of the restaurant industry. We're going to dive into this deep and what kind of impact this may have, not only on Bitcoin, but just in general, the crypto market and consumer adoption. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's dive into it today. On the news that Chipotle Mexican Grill, you guys know them, has started to accept crypto payments. Now, the process for this to take action has been a little bit, I think, cumbersome, but also at the same time fast, in the sense that most of the kind of scenarios that you typically see in the restaurant industry are very slow tech adoption. This may be changing soon, and a lot kind of breaking down this. I want to kind of go through a lot here because it gives you kind of, or hopefully will paint a story of how Chipotle may be transitioning a pretty big industry into crypto payments. Make sure and drop your questions in the sidebar, and also make sure to like the video, because that's another way that we get great input from you guys of what you really like to listen to, and of course watch here on YouTube. Let's get over to this first story coming from an unusual space that you guys don't get to see often, and that is a place called Nation's Restaurant News. This is entering in. And this was dropped on Chipotle entering the metaverse via the Roblox game. Now, the first time I saw this was back in early April. First time I saw it, we reported a little bit on it. The big problem was Chipotle's metaverse venture actually kind of flopped. It didn't do well, and the overall aspect of them trying to do something within the metaverse was kind of thwarted with, I think, just a fail. It just wasn't a great experience for users that were using it. And overall, I think Chipotle is probably either one, trying to do some initial tests, or trying to get a framework within their own team to be able to address this. Now, there are some questions and some situations I think that the industry is going to be facing. When I say the industry, meaning the restaurant industry, facing on what this might look like in the future, and that is tech adoption. If you look at tech adoption in this space, retail, over the last decade, I have worked in this space quite a bit, understand kind of the tech adoption process and how these companies work. They're a little bit slow on the uptick, but typically when they get going, it usually gets ramped up in terms of mass adoption. And examples for that would be things like ghost kitchens, online ordering, delivery, food delivery, all those kind of things really ramped up. Now, sure, COVID had a lot to do with that, especially in the restaurant space, but a lot of it was already moving in that direction, and it just kind of amplified. But when you look at whether or not technology, especially crypto, can be adopted by a major retail sector, and I did a poll not too long ago on this very topic of which sector would adopt NFTs first or most efficiently in terms of mass adoption, and fashion was one. Food and retail, banking, and medical were the four options. And unfortunately, restaurant industry was actually third of the overall poll, and fashion was still number one. But if you look at what this story breaks down, why every restaurant operator should care about NFTs and the metaverse right now, this was just done back here in February. Again, talking a lot about what was happening in the early year around McDonald's and Panera, both trying some membership concepts, and also the whole idea of how NFT integrations into food loyalty may be a thing. Because here's the big factor we've talked about this before with the AMP founder, CEO, Tyler, on this, when we had him on the show here recently. I'll play a clip here in a little bit about this, but the big factor here is really going to be adoption, because the scenario for crypto payments to really get to critical mass is going to happen through some sort of vein of adoption, and that's going to have to carry through the retail sector, I believe, more so than anywhere. The only other sector that it would probably get more adoption and push from is going to be the banking sector, and I know that's not going to happen anytime soon. So retail, I think, just by default, will be pulling through, I think, a lot of what we're going to see in terms of adoption. The other thing that you think about from the size of this industry, I wanted to kind of go to, and this is a hard to read, food processing, processed food. This is mostly the size of the market that we're looking at. In the United States, it's around a $1.3 trillion market when it was pre-COVID, 2019. There was a lot that, of course, got crushed in COVID. now the industry in the United States, North America, has dropped to around $890 billion. And 890 is still massive market, unbelievable in size, only secondary to the medical industry in terms of overall size. So the market opportunity here is pretty significant if this really takes off. So here's the story right here. Taco tokens, Chipotle adds crypto payments via the Flexa. And you'll notice here on this story here, let me kind of zoom in up a little bit here. Nearly 3,000 restaurants across the United States will accept 98 cryptocurrencies as basically their option for payments, to support crypto payments. Now remember, the idea behind crypto payments is not using your Bitcoin for a burrito. If you're watching and you think that, absolutely not the case. What it is looking at something that we just talked about on another episode with Jordy Alexander, and that is understanding how base cash is used. And we haven't really seen the use case in crypto for a base cash type element. And that means something that you would take in exchange for services or maybe even pay, and then you would then use that same type of digital asset in some sort of transaction. Now, the question will be does things like GUSD, Gemini US dollar, USDC, Tether, etc., do those become the new de facto opportunity here for these wallets to connect in? So remember, what we're looking at today and what we're starting to see across the industry is kind of a shift between where the traditional banking wallet lies today in your bank right now, earning 0% interest, and or starting to see that money shifting over into these other wallets and these other platforms, such as the exchanges that are starting to really kind of open up with both debit card use and also the ability to earn a lot of yield on stablecoins. And that's where I think a lot of this is going to line up with what's happening over at Chipotle. So here's the tweet from Flexa. Bitcoin making burritos. Obviously, I don't think we're going to see Bitcoin being used. But anyway, we're delighted to share that Chipotle is now accepting payments in Bitcoin, Ether, Dogecoin, and many more. I think for me, it would be a GUSD type transaction, something like that within the Gemini app, which is what we're going to see a little bit more into this. But here's the press release where they're talking about it. Chipotle is also going to give away 200,000 of free burritos and Bitcoin to celebrate the National Burrito Day. The point is that to me, this is one of the major retail restaurant chains that is recognized globally. And I think it's also the restaurant chain, the #1 restaurant chain in reference to technology adoption. And the reason this is important is because when you look at the retail restaurant trade, the likelihood of Chipotle dragging the rest of retail restaurants into this sector is real, because all of them are competing at a very high level to track against Chipotle, both on an overall customer acquisition, but also on a loyalty and retention side of things. So you remember, crypto is still a very small sector of the market, but the fact that we're going to start to see, I think, the real crypto brethren starting to use different types of apps and models to actually utilize crypto payments, I think this is a big deal, and it definitely could be the beginning of something huge. Here was just there was actually a couple of tweets here. I want to just kind of show you this one here, and I've got a better angle. This one right here kind of shows how fast, let me kind of actually pause that, bring it back a little bit, how fast this transaction occurs. And the cool thing that I like about this is that this is in essence faster than traditional merchant services. Now, granted, this doesn't make a lot of sense to most consumers in real world. It doesn't really apply, but if you've ever been in a Chipotle line queue, you understand any kind of problems or any kind of slowdown in merchant services, waiting for the line to connect, they've got something's down, those kind of things. All of this applies to how the flow of retail goes through. So anything that can add to transaction speed is going to be huge. The other aspect, as long as it doesn't interfere with transaction speed, is the other aspect to this. Now, the other thing that could really play into this is the fact that we're going to see more and more wallets and more services integrating this in as a perk. And what I mean by that is, you know, projects like Robinhood and their cash card. Obviously, we know that Robinhood has already moved into crypto in a big way. They, of course, now have their debit card. I just actually got this one in. And it's going to be interesting because now you're going to be able to do a lot more with the debit card itself. But what's interesting to me is it gets access into some of the additional services. So they're going to help Cash Card customers by inflation. They're going to knock down when they shop at some of their favorite spots like H&M, Chevron, and Chipotle. More coming soon. So the likelihood is that this debit card is going to start to utilize much more of the Robinhood's overall strategy, which I think eventually will lay into their DeFi wallet, the non-custodial wallet, which is going to be big in the sense that you'll have USDC or Tether or others stablecoins in there and have that ability to cross into your Robinhood app and use your Robinhood app almost like a bank. Now, this is happening in some places like Gemini already, Voyager to a certain extent, and others who are trying to get either debit cards and or credit cards launched into these services. That to me is a killer app. But the cool thing around this is this whole integration into payments. And that's where it's going to get very interesting as we see more and more of this really adopt. Before we continue on, I want to thank our sponsor, iTrust Capital. Of course, if you guys are looking at going in long-term on any kind of crypto investment, one thing that you have to do in times like this is look to the long term and also look at an opportunity to kind of stack your bags. And this is one of the ways to do it, is getting invested in a crypto IRA. The one thing I always recommend, and we use this ourselves, is find the best IRA out there that's the most trusted. And when you look at the over 5 billion in transactions, their raise of 125 million, now valuing them at a $1.3 billion company, and over 150,000 accounts now in iTrust Capital. So really one of the better platforms out there. Definitely recommend them. Get a $100 funding reward just by using our link below. All right, now continuing on, when you look at the size of a company like Chipotle and what kind of trickle effect could this have on the rest of retail? Because this could happen in the restaurant industry. Where is next? Then we're going to potentially see Amazon, then Walmart, all these elements that will eventually just come, I think, overtake what retail will be doing in terms of transaction opportunities and the ability for you to shift into accounts where you're making yield instead of sitting in a dormant bank account where it's doing nothing. And I think that's the big split that we'll continue to see, is the departure into a lot of these new really platforms that I think are going to take over the banking industry. And when you have that as your bank, where you're earning 5% plus on any kind of stable coin, whether it's a GUSD and you're earning almost 7%, or you're over on Voyager earning 9 on USDC, wherever you're earning those kinds of scenarios, and you now have the option to use that app as a payment tool, that is a killer potential. I want you to just take a look at the size of this market and where Chipotle's come from. So sales growth, just look at how fast this company is growing. 2018, 8% growth, double digit in 2019. This is pre-pandemic right here. Then, of course, 2020 pandemic, 7% growth, and now 2021, a 26% growth. One of the biggest reasons for their growth in 2021 was their digitization of what they were trying to do with their consumer. And I think the fact that they're getting into more options on payments is only going to get these guys further and further up the chain in terms of kind of leading the market space for sure. I wanted to cut to a video that we did with the AMP founder and CEO, and that's Tyler, because we kind of dive into this. So I'm kind of pausing in here. I'll show you this video real quick. Think who loses on this end? The merchant wins, the consumer wins, the integrators win. Is it just the banks?
No, the issuing banks actually win too.
Okay.
So they're the ones, yeah, so they're the ones that are basically issuing these other payment cards or the products. And so they're actually collecting the majority of the fees, but they're having to pay a percentage of their revenue to a messaging service, essentially. So
Gotcha.
This card network, when you get your credit card statement in the mail, it doesn't say the messaging service card network. It says your bank, right? You're the bank's customer. So that's good. They're still happy. They want to remove the inefficiency. And so the reason why everyone is locked in is really just the acceptance. When you have these products, they work everywhere. This plastic card, you can swipe it almost in every country, anywhere you want to go. And that is such a dominant force that when you have that, they can now charge all these other fees, and all of the other participants, might not necessarily like it. When you look at the largest bank in the world, just for comparison, the largest card network in the world is worth about 80% the market cap of the largest bank in the world. So people see this and they say, well, how does that work? How does a basically software that's a messaging service that sits on top of everything else, that has all these other interested parties, how are they worth 80% the largest bank in the world? So something.
All right, so Tyler hit on a lot of things there. What I was getting at was the AMP service that Flexa, or the Flexa service that they're offering around payments, circumvents a lot of the scenarios of where merchant service fees are collected from. So when you replace that whole ecosystem with essentially the blockchain, you're circumventing a lot of different service fees, a lot of the percentage fees, and now what we're looking at is a potential, really a landslide difference in the amount of service fees that are going to be paid by the merchants. So the merchants win on this, the banks win on this, and then the consumers win because there's going to be less fees. Obviously, I don't know this will affect prices, but it might, because we're talking in many cases, when you look at the size of this industry, hundreds of millions of dollars that are at stake just by turning on the switch of being able to accept blockchain or crypto payments. That's going to be a big factor, I think, in the future going forward. The other thing that kind of plays into this is, here's Flex's tweet celebrating offering a 10% off. This is going to be huge, 10% off your next purchase on any Chipotle when you use a Flexa-enabled app. You get into Gemini or also Speedin apps to get started. So those are the two right now that are available within it. How long they'll hold that 10%, but I think just the fact that you're going to get these kind of rewards and kind of what I showed you earlier with Robinhood. Lots happening here with where we could see adoption really occur. Make sure, again, don't forget, get your questions in on the side. Make sure and also hit the like button. We love to get your feedback. And really kind of, if you think that this is going to help retail really move into adoption and move the general adoption of crypto by retail and consumers, make sure and hit the like button if you think that's going to happen. All right, let's get into this because this is kind of where it starts to show the actual scenario. So here is the kind of payments that are available and the difference in terms of cost. So this is for a drink. So you can kind of see the different transactions this guy has done. But the fact is that this is going to be less, in this particular case, less money by just utilizing, in this particular case, the Speedin app. So interesting stuff, I think, to see this really kind of fly forward. Here's another video of this. Just this one actually shows a little bit better how fast this thing is. Let me, it's so quickly too. Hang on one second. And then just boom, it's just there. So I think that is, again, just creates that consumer confidence, creates that confidence with the retailer that says, oh, people like doing this, and eventually we're going to start to see that shift occur. And as I said earlier, the big factor here, I think, is the migration from traditional banking into other places. Now, when you start to add these additional benefits to things like this, where you get a major retailer like Chipotle, which is just going to be the first domino, and then you're going to see the rest of these guys start to follow suit. Whether we see McDonald's or Starbucks or many of the others, Burger King, Wendy's, you could just go down a litany of all the fast food chains. Then eventually this will roll in to almost every retailer out there. The question I will have for AMP and Flexa will be how they get to the adoption curve, especially in the industry, because right now about 60% of the industry is still independent, meaning small mom and pop operators or fine dining. And to be able to suck up that portion of the market, they're going to need a network of some sort of sales integration or some way to get those retailers turned on. The retail side of it from the mass chains, I think this will come fast, and it kind of is that pull-through mechanism that kind of helps that adoption occur. This is a chart that kind of shows how all this works. It's a little bit confusing, but one thing I wanted to kind of show here was this processing fee right here. See if I can zoom in on that right there. So you can kind of see processing fees less than 1% or less on this. So again, just the whole process, again, consumers will not know that this is even going on in the background. All they'll think is, hey, we have, a payment, and the payment processor will be pretty much silent, and you won't even know that that's actually happening through the method. So I think that's going to be a huge one. Here was another one just showing an easier and more simple flow of how it works. Any app, I think this is going to be integrated. This is what Tyler and I talked about in the video. So make sure and check that video, that full video out, because there's a lot in there about retail payments and why it is so important to adoption for cryptocurrency. The minute that people figure out, wait a minute, I can take my $100 in my bank account, I can stick it in Gemini or somewhere like that and earn 7% on that $100 stablecoin and use that in retail transactions just like a debit card. Oh, wait a minute, that's how everything starts to change. Same thing will happen, I think, as we see projects and platforms like Robinhood starting to move in this direction, and others that I think are kind of going in this direction. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more action from the big exchanges kind of in this direction, from Coinbase, FTX, and Crypto.com. Even though there are some card programs in there, we haven't seen these kind of integrations yet. So I think that's coming, definitely for sure, down the road. Let me kind of also break down kind of what they're trying to showcase here on what you have to do. So just open Flexa enabled app, Chipotle to your spin, digital currency, boom, you're in. No need to worry about how slow it is. It's going to be very fast. Obviously, it's available nationwide today, so you can get this in 3,000 different Chipotles out there. Carbon and negative. This is something that Tyler and I have talked about, Flexa being one of the cleanest blockchains out there. And then the 10% off. So you can get this in the 2 apps right now with Gemini and also with Speedin. So cool stuff. I think this is going to be something that really starts to move the ball here. And I think when you look at processing fees, this is just something that shows the 2021. This is Visa, MasterCard, Discover. These are the kind of processing fees that merchants will have to pay. And that's premium deals. That's with merchants that have good programs. They're paying both swipe fees and then also the card fees themselves. Then they have the whole transaction loop of being able just to get the money. Sometimes it's very fast depending on your processor. Sometimes even with things like Stripe, it's still 24 to 48 hours versus getting what in most cases with blockchain could be almost instantaneous settlement, according to what AMP and the Flexa team are talking about. So my question to you guys would be, if we see the top 10 retailers go in this direction in the next 18 months, because I think that's what we're leaning into right now. Chipotle's doing this right now in a time in which the market is down. The likelihood is we're going to start to see a lot more, because these guys are very competitive, and when I say they, meaning the market itself. We'll most likely see other major retailers in food service and I think in retail start to drop the hammer on accepting payments. By doing that, and then the timing of the next bull run, which I think will be another major adoption phase, because obviously we'll still continue to see both retail and institutional capitals moving in. The difference will be, and this is the big key to me, is when you look back at what happened when we hit our last all-time high for Bitcoin, what was happening then? We weren't getting in retail payments. We only were getting in mainly some retail adoption from an acquisition point, and then a little bit of institutional capital. That was really kind of the differences there. Obviously, we had a lot happening in DeFi and things like that. This next cycle, we're going to have a whole slew of new elements that start to influence how Bitcoin, crypto, and overall blockchain will be accepted. Retail is going to be at a higher adoption rate. Payments, especially retail payment. Then you have regulation that most likely will be in place, or at least on the way to being in place by then. So I think this is going to have a huge culminative effect on how this is going to really kind of roll in blockchain as the thing that we keep talking about on our channel all the time, and that is an evolution in how all of this is happening. I'm going to get to our poll real quick. We'll also get into some Bitcoin, and we've got a big surprise for you guys to do on something that we launched on the Diamond Circle as well. If you guys have never signed up for our Diamond Circle, maybe you're a new member or a new viewer here, click our link below, because we offer a free newsletter and service of additional data and stuff like that that we provide to all of our members for free. and it gets you a couple of emails a week on those kind of updates. But you can sign up in the link below. Let's jump to a poll real quick. All right, so would you consider? Wow, 63% would buy with crypto. All right. So, and I think I think this is because you guys are smart enough to know that that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin to me is a store of value. It is not an exchange. Now, could it be through the Lightning Network and those kind of elements? Sure, there's aspects in which Bitcoin as a rail system could be utilized, but from an investment standpoint, these are, in my opinion, these are going to be most likely stable coins and some of the altcoins that have the ability to trade in and out. Because in some of these cases, especially in a bull market, the opportunity for trading in and out on something like a Dogecoin or things like that, that we're going to either see stable or slightly up on some of these. Not saying Dogecoin will be around by then, but it could be. But we'll see a lot of other altcoins that I think are going to really kind of flow into this. We're definitely going to get into questions today, so make sure and drop them in over on the side today. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and kind of recovering just slightly here at 30,204. Remember that you guys can jump to our crypto index, the power index, and when you're there, if you just go to our website, which is paulbaronnetwork.com, you'll find us. You can kind of take a look at where things are going from a sentiment standpoint. So I want to jump over here to Bitcoin. So a little bit slight down, obviously, from yesterday, seeing a little bit of downward trend, but not heavy. Remember, these are not big moves on Bitcoin. And the fact that we're seeing sentiment and amplification still continuing to track fairly close, because out here it was a little bit out of whack when we were seeing a little bit more damage on Bitcoin around the 25 to 26 mark. Back in mid-April, or mid-May. But the fact that we started to see amplification rise, which is this red one right here, that is always a good indicator for Bitcoin. And it's also a good indicator because it's amplifying on what we see on the overall market sentiment, which looks at all crypto assets. So Bitcoin looking pretty good. I also wanted to look at AMP right here, because AMP, of course, is the governance token for Flexa, which is the platform that's being used for this whole payment architecture. And I think Flexa is just getting going here, but just shortly, I mean, they had this nice little bump right here. This was back here on May 12th. So showing you a couple of weeks here, 67 and a 67.13. So amplification was tight, real tight right here, showed an upward trend. Then we saw amplification kind of fall off to a 63.19 and this downward trend right here, a little bit of sideways action. I don't think that Flexa has truly, AMP has truly seen any kind of movement on this news just yet, because I don't know that people really understand what this could mean to the industry for sure. As I said, I promised to you guys, one thing we're doing that is brand new, and I'm going to show you how to get there. So when you just go to our website, we'll jump off of it for a second, and you get into the Crypto Power Index or the Diamond Circle. Diamond Circle is free. So if you're already logged in or you're a member, you can get to it really quickly, but just log in. But if you aren't, just join. You'll jump to your library. And in your library, right here on Diamond Circle, you're going to see a new element. And it's this thing right here. It's called Luna Tracker. So what we've done is to give you a sneak peek of not only the CPI, but this is a daily sentiment tracker for Luna, the new Luna. And essentially what we're looking at now is key metrics across this, looking at kind of a downward trend right now, obviously with Luna, but a lot of people have been asking about this. You can now get this for free. It's updated daily, and it's got the latest news, a lot of the access feeds, the whole thing here with Luna as it sets as of today on the 2nd. We update this daily, Monday through Friday, so it's free. It's part of our Diamond Circle program right now, so it's just another way for you guys to get more access. Let's get over to questions real quick. Okay. I will buy with crypto if I'm in gains. So again, I think that's just something that we'll continue to see, but if you're using USDC or GUSD, then that's a stable coin. So you would be able to utilize that. But remember, you're always getting paid rewards on those stable coins as well. Crypto Mike, I believe the project, believe more ever. This, I'm assuming you're talking about AMP. It's like buying XRP cheap in 2017. Dino, so I'm a retailer food store. Okay, great. How do we get set up on crypto accounts payment services? Wow. I'd get a hold of Flexa. Just go to the Flexa website. I'm sure they're signing up retailers now on this as we speak. I'm assuming. I can't imagine they wouldn't, because they do have it in place. And you get listed in that app, I believe, with like Gemini and Speedin and all those. So it's going to come. And I think we're going to see just an absolute explosion of apps plugging into Flexa and having that capability to buy and do transactions within crypto. All right, let's go here. Eclectic, let's see. Okay, so in the bull market, would this announcement make AMP pump? It would have, yeah, for sure, I think. But I don't know that AMP is completely connected to as much to Flexa as many people think. Unless you really study AMP and understand Flexa's overall project, it's a difficult one to kind of connect the dots on for most newbies or people who are brand new in crypto. But I think this is going to be a big one. I think this is going to be a big one. Hilldog, Paul, would restaurant crypto payments help slow the regulations? I think, unfortunately, it's going to speed them up, because the restaurant industry is very active in DC. Their association is pretty active. And if it's going to help the restaurant industry overall, think of it not just about restaurants, hotels, tourism, all that. That industry is massive. So it definitely has a pretty big one. Why is Luna still being talked about? You know, here's the thing, JB, is that we try to deliver, first of all, what our audience is looking for. And you'll see Luna on every major crypto news site out there. Because it still is in the news, it doesn't necessarily mean that we promote it, because we promote no tokens here. But just so you guys understand, I don't own it and I don't buy it. And if I were giving my friends or any recommendations, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would just say I would not touch Luna. But we have a lot of people who have looked at it and maybe have been backed into it. So it's one of the reasons we kind of track it. We are going to do more trackers, though, other than Luna. Luna is just right now, could be up there on the Diamond Circle for free for 2 weeks, and then we might flip it to something else. I know. What else would you guys like to see on the trackers? Give us some token ideas, and maybe if there's one in there that we really like. Hopefully it's something that we don't track within the CPI itself, so it's kind of a subset. Alban, I would be interested in a video covering the top 10 cards that are available, like the Robinhood. Okay, that's a cool one. We've done a couple of the crypto cards before. We did a breakdown on some of the debit cards. There are some cards coming out. There's a lot available in the market, and I think it's getting more and more. Voyager's been promising their card for quite some time. Gemini, you can get the credit card. Robinhood is a cash card. It's like a debit card, and it's pulling off of your main wallet, which is your dollar wallet, your spendable amount. But when they open up DeFi, I just wonder how that will connect to USDC. If it does connect to USDC, banks, ooh, that's trouble. That's trouble, because you can already do direct deposit and bill pay with Robinhood. So there's some things happening. Isn't that defeating the purpose of decentralization? Why replace one type of middleman with another? Well, think about this for a second. Blockchain is not a middleman. That's a decentralized, centralized model, where what we see with traditional payment processors, there's 3 middlemen that is involved in there. Not only do you have the banks who have it, but the merchant services who have it, and then the POS providers who also have it. So there's a lot of pad in that transaction layer. This is actually shrinking the amount of transactions that you have to go through. So that, I think, is one of the reasons. It's kind of like XRP. When you look at how XRP or Ripple is being used for the replacement of SWIFT, there's another good example, obviously, for bigger transactions. Hey, Paul, what do you think one day we could pay for gas? For sure, no doubt. Do you think AMP is going to be a big deal? I think so. Yeah, I think Flex is going to be a big deal. AMP, the governance of it. My question would be, if Flexa decides to go public, how do they deal with a token being in there? Rob, if McDonald's accepts certain coins, would that be a coin to invest in, since it bring more money to McDonald's? I don't know if we'll see. We may see some of these tokens or some of these restaurant chains start to offer up tokens. I definitely think they're going to drop into NFTs and get more active in that space. There's a lot of things, I think, from a retail standpoint that this starts to bring up in the boardrooms of many of these big chains, including retail. I'm surprised that we haven't seen this with Amazon yet, because I think it's coming with Amazon. Crypto Mike, welcome back in. Robinhood will necessarily need to buy AMP if they want to use Flexa. Will necessarily need to buy. I don't know if that is the case. I believe it's a services platform. That is a question. I would have to look back on our interview with Tyler to see how that plugs in when it's an exchange that is utilizing the service overall. Chipotle is a McDonald's spinoff. Well, not really. How about adoption of McDonald's worldwide community? That would be huge, Stephen. Now, Chipotle, McDonald's at one time owned a large percentage of Chipotle, but that, of course, was separated when the story was when they kind of pulled away and became their own fast casual concept. So not necessarily the case. But if we do see McDonald's go to a crypto payment model, whether it's through Flexa or something else, they could be working on right now that's their own decentralized wallet. Who knows? But the thing would be is their global impact would be immediate because the amount of retail footprints that they have on a global standpoint is absolutely huge. But the one that will really kill it is going to be Subway and Starbucks. Those are the ones that are the real dealers out there when it comes to overall footprint. Your thoughts on using Doge's payment? Fine. I don't have any problem. I think it's great. I think anything that's a monetary solution, if you think it is an investment and you're willing to put some money in it and you want to kind of spend off of that either gain, which is the way I've done it with some of my usage with crypto in the past. Why would this be easier than tapping a credit card? It's not necessarily going to be easier. It's going to be the same. The difference will be when a retailer doesn't have to pay 3%. That's going to be the bigger difference. When a retailer doesn't have to pay the 3%, they're going to start incentivizing you to buy or use that service as opposed to others, much like what many of retailers do today of trying to incentivize you to use debit instead of credit. So think about that. There's reasons behind that, and these are hundreds of millions of dollars that are at stake. I don't need Chipotle, but if they expect crypto, why not more restaurants? I think it's going to come, Rob. It will be just a domino effect. Chipotle is one of the tech leaders in the space, and it is one I think we're going to continue to see huge moves on there. Do you think projects investing strongly in marketing like F1, FIFA, etc.? I think right now, those are, marketing is a very important thing in bear markets because this is when, one, you stay alive, and two, you gain new audience or new, Kool-Aid drinkers that are already in the space. So it's a matter of market share. So the guy with the best marketing strategy in a bear market usually wins because once you have market share, the potential for that network effect becomes real when you go into a bull market, because once you have market share, now you have 100,000 or 1 million users, and those 1 million users have family members, friends, and all that. Who do you use? Oh, I use Forager or Crypto.com or whatever it might be. So it's a very critical element right now. So to your question, yes, I think the more marketing they put out there, the more people, one, trust them, and two, I think the more of that market share is going to start to shift. Is anyone going to buy a burrito with their Bitcoin? No, I don't think so. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be used in here. It's just, that's the tagline, that's going to be used to kind of promote this. But they would buy it with USDC or GUSD. I'm not paying ETH gas fees for sure. Probably going to have some kind of variation there. I don't see ETH and or Bitcoin being the driver here. I would buy with cryptos with a high supply. Okay, perfect. Again, getting back to the kind of cryptos that you would buy with, definitely I see those coming in the future. Man, it sounds like it's raining out here for sure. All right, so listen. You guys are listening in over on the podcast right now. If it's on the audio version, make sure and check out the YouTube channel. This is the place where you're going to catch our analysis, all of our breakdowns like this, some of our sentiment data, all the kind of stuff that we do on an ongoing basis. Remember, this is not financial advice. Hopefully it gets you moving in the right direction for your own research and how you're going into the crypto market or into just digital assets as a whole. Maybe it's NFTs, gaming, all those kind of things. Also, check out our other show because it's a good one, and that is Metaverse Insider, which is a great one to jump to. We do it here on the network quite a bit. If you want to reach me, it's out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.